Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Since 1926, Farm Bureau has been working to preserve Virginia farms and our rural heritage. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce the wonderful local products we enjoy. Brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Some rural Virginia residents are having trouble calling for help when they need it most. Chef Tammy Brawley turns a simple pork meatball recipe into a delicious dish with spinach and peas. And if you love history, the State Fair of Virginia is the place to be.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay. Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Welcome back to Real Virginia, everyone. We're coming to you this week from Gallmeyer Farm in Henrico County. Living in the country is a wonderful option for many Virginians, but that distance from urban areas comes with a unique challenge. It's sometimes harder to get quick help in an emergency. Burke Moeller reports some rural residents are trying to improve their 911 call systems.
Imagine calling 911 in an emergency and it gets picked up by 911 in another county or even another state. It happens more often than anyone would want, especially in rural areas. Sherry Herzing tragically lost her husband Bob in 2018 after he suffered a heart attack while working on a neighbor's deck near Lake Gaston in Brunswick County. It took 47 minutes for first responders to arrive. The initial 911 call, made from a cell phone, went to Warren County, North Carolina.
At that time, the dispatcher could not transfer the phone call to Brunswick County, so she kept telling the person, my husband's best friend, to hang up the phone and to write down a 10-digit number and call that number to try to get to the right county. Well, he couldn't do that and perform CPR. So the neighbors started showing up, taking turns CPR. 2 or 3 other people tried to call 911 on their cell phone. They got the same thing. And of course, everybody was in a panic. Nobody had a pencil or a paper. So one of my neighbors ran home to use his home phone. He called 911 on his home phone and he thought, okay, I'm gonna get to the right call center. Instead, it went to South Hill, Virginia, because he had a voice override phone. It wasn't a true landline. And that's something that we didn't realize. So the next person who called from their home finally got through.
But not in time to save Sherry's husband. In the immediate aftermath, law enforcement took their own initiative.
3 days later after the incident, I did some testing, and we called all the local jurisdictions. I mean, it's 5 counties here that surround the lake, and I placed 24 911 test calls. I never left my county, and only 4 of them came to my 911 center. And 1 went to Colorado, actually, and those statistics were so startling. You know, in all my years, at that point, I'd had about 22 years of service. I knew the lake had problems with cellular issues, but never knew it was to that magnitude.
Another cell tower has been placed in the area, improving response times. However, in some ways, it's easy to see how a cell phone can be sent to a tower in another jurisdiction. This red buoy marks the North Carolina border, not 50 feet from the edge of the home where Bob Herzing died. Many who live in rural areas want to get away from it all, but that includes being far from hospitals and first responders. The closest Level 1 hospital to Brunswick County is Chippenham Hospital in South Richmond, at least 30 minutes each way by medevac. The problem is only getting more acute as more people stop using landlines.
Very few people have in-home telephone systems anymore. Everybody relies on cell phones and stuff, and that means they bump off of a tower. And when it goes to that tower, it's going to pick up that tower and it's going to send it to whatever district that tower is associated with. With us, it would be Warren County or Northampton a lot of times. And if the person on the other end of that phone does not come strictly out and say, look, I need Brunswick County EMS or Brunswick County Fire, you know, I actually live in Brunswick County, I'm calling from a cell phone. And a lot of times in a moment of panic, you don't think about that. And that's something that that's one of the downfalls of a cell phone.
Those who work in 911 call centers say most people who call them are in a panic, so they urge rural residents to become familiar with their surroundings.
When people call us, they expect that someone is going to come. And that's why I always give that analogy of know where your local fire department is, know where your local rescue squad is, know if they have career staffing, know if they have volunteer staffing, know if somebody's there all the time. Because on your best case scenario, that's how long it's going to take them to get to your house. So if it's 20 minutes today, it's going to be 20 minutes on the day of your emergency. And if they're helping somebody else, that 20 could turn into 30 or 40 or even 50.
The problem isn't limited to rural areas. Pastor Michelle Thomas lost her 16-year-old son Fitz last year in a drowning accident in Goose Creek in Loudoun County near the Maryland border. Even though they were in Virginia, the initial 911 cell calls were answered in Montgomery County, Maryland. His friends took him out of the water, but it took 38 minutes for first responders to arrive. Like Sherry Herzing, Pastor Thomas is using the circumstances of her tragedy to inform people and get them to demand action.
We have to take this energy, as hurtful as it is, and turn it into policy. And so there are things that need to be done at the local level. There are things, putting the border, mile markers. That's something that our local and our state agencies can really take care of. But there are some things at the federal level in terms of funding this technology and funding these call centers and elevating our call center employees to crisis workers. I think that those things need to happen as well. That, not just on the local side, but the state gets involved and also the federal gets involved because Americans are dying.
Activists like Sherry Herzing and Pastor Thomas are hoping reforms to the 911 system in all communities will be the legacy of the loved ones they lost. In Loudoun County, I'm Burke Moeller reporting.
Efforts to create a universal phone number for emergency help date back to 1957, when the National Association of Fire Chiefs suggested a single nationwide telephone number to report fires. A decade later, the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Justice recommended expanding that purpose to all emergencies. In 1968, AT&T announced that 911 would be the number set aside for that purpose, in part because that particular combination of numbers had never been used before. By the end of the 20th century, nearly 93% of the U.S. population was covered by some sort of 911 service.
I'm Mark Viette. Coming up on In the Garden, I'm going to talk about colorful plants late in the season. Stay with us.
We're stronger together, especially at this difficult time. For over 90 years, we've watched our membership grow, and we're honored to be part of such a special community. Thank you to the farmers who provide for us every day. Virginia Farm Bureau is proud to serve our members, their families, and to give back to our local communities. That's the Farm Bureau way.
It's not too late in the season for your garden to shine. Mark Viette shows us some late season colorful plants in the garden.
Late season gardening is a great time for all of us. It's not as hot as it is in the summer. It's kind of cool. And so there's certain plants that you can incorporate into your garden that are quite showy. One of my favorites, it's a naturalizing perennial, is the Japanese windflower, and I believe it has its name from, if you're lucky enough, you ever get those seed pods, they look like cotton candy that blows in the wind. And this is the white form of the Japanese windflower. We started out with 3 plants, and now we've ended up over 10 years with more plants that fill a space in the garden. Prior to this, We had daylilies blooming before this really got to this height. There are some other great plants that you can consider putting in your garden. Now, we focus on our patio because, you know, my mom and dad's house here, they'll sit in the patio and they're going to enjoy all the birds, the monarch butterflies, the swallowtails, and of course, the hummingbirds. Favorite #1 plant for hummingbirds is salvia black and blue. And we'll have as many as a dozen hummingbirds at one time. And behind the salvia black and blue, now this is a tropical annual. It grows in Argentina, so you need to protect it or take it in for the winter. But behind it, we have the beautiful butterfly bush or buddleia, and that attracts the late season monarch butterflies. This plant here has been in a garden for almost 30 years. It is known as the New England aster, so it's native to North America. And I like it because it blooms late in the season with these beautiful flowers. And the reason I like it is the migration of the monarchs as they come through our area. This is one of their favorite plants to feed on before they end up in Mexico. Probably within the top 3 perennials I would want to grow would be the summer blooming phlox. Well, you might ask, why is it blooming so late? I sheared this back almost to the ground the middle of July, anytime from July 4th through the 2nd week in July. There's certain plants you can cut back. Came back up, looks beautiful, in bud, and now in full bloom. Look at the size of the flowers on this anemone. And this is a hybrid. Someone bred this one, and it is called Kremhilda. And the flowers are huge, over 2 inches in diameter. The fall blooming anemone, or the Japanese windflower, is native to Asia. In Japan, it grows up in the mountains, all different sizes and heights. This is a tall pink, but on one hand, it's pretty, but it flops and falls over in the garden. There are some other varieties which are great. There is a double pink that is fantastic, and that is called Pamina. You know, some of us are lucky. We hybridize plants, we try to breed plants, we try to create new plants. Guess what? I found this one in the garden here. It is a later blooming anemone. All the flowers face when the sun comes up. Beautiful pink. The maximum height is a little bit above my knee. It's phenomenal, and it may be one I'm going to patent one day because it's so great for the garden. Now remember, if you live in some of these warmer areas toward the beach, you're going to want to plant anemones in bright shade. It's the best environment, and it's a fantastic plant for late season color. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time in the garden.
For more garden tips, go to inthegardenradio.com.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley. Coming up on Heart of the Home, pork and ricotta meatballs with spinach and peas over egg noodles. We hope you'll stay with us.
And now, a sneak peek into a day in the life of a Virginia dairy cow. They get their day started. They have some lunch. Get some exercise. Spend time with their friends. And then end their day with dairy sweet dreams. Real dairy, real life, real delicious.
Holiday party season is here. Chef Tammy Brawley shows us how to take a simple meatball recipe and kick it to the next level in the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen, and welcome to Heart of the Home. Today I'm going to show you guys how to do some delicious pork meatballs in a Parmesan broth. One of my very favorite recipes to do. It's very nice and hearty, great fall dish. And what we've actually started a few ahead just to get the cooking process going. I have a bowl here, and I have about a half a pound or so of ground pork. And then I have a mixture of panko breadcrumbs, some nutmeg, an egg yolk, and some Parmesan cheese, and we're going to add that to the ground pork. All right, this is when we get to play with our food. You're going to mix this all together. Oh, and there's also ricotta cheese. I see that now. So it's ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, some breadcrumbs, and some nutmeg, and we're going to add a little salt and pepper in just a moment. A little salt, a little pepper. You want to get these nice and thoroughly combined. You've got the breadcrumbs in there as a binder in addition to the egg. All right, I'm going to step away for just a second to rinse my hands. Now you want to have handy a portion scoop. Looks like an ice cream scoop, sort of is, but it's a nice portion scoop that'll give you nice even pieces. You want to get those in there. Put them on a ready-made plate that's going to, before you start cooking them. They are rather big. They're going to be a very filling portion. And this is the sort of thing you could do the night before if you wanted to have them get ready for dinner the next night. Let them sit on a tray in the refrigerator covered in plastic. Looks like this particular batch at about a half a pound of pork is going to make us about 8 meatballs, give or take. All right. So our meatballs are ready. Now I have already started some cooking over here to my left. We've got olive oil in the pan. We've put the meatballs in and we're letting them brown on both sides. This takes about 10 minutes or so. And then what you want to do is you want to come back in with some spinach, fresh spinach, and some thawed peas. You know, if you're growing peas in the garden, that's great. You want to get frozen if you don't. Now we're going to add some chicken stock. It's going to splatter a little bit, so I'm going to try to be very careful. Now the splattering will calm down a little bit. And here's the kicker that you really want to make sure you add, and I love doing this, a Parmesan rind. You don't want the grated Parmesan, you just want to cut off that rind at the end there. If you use fresh Parmesan in your recipes, it's great. When you get down to the rind, don't throw that rind away. Throw it in your freezer. The next time you make some sort of sauce such as this, even your tomato sauces for your spaghettis, add your Parmesan rind to that sauce. You want to stir this up just a little bit. And now we're going to pop a lid on it. It's going to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes or so, simmering down and thickening up. And get ready for a nice, delicious lunch. All right, so now we've let it simmer for about 10 minutes or so. The broth has reduced. It's gotten a little creamy in texture from that Parmesan rind. And now we're going to serve it. One of the best ways to serve it is over a bowl of egg noodles. So we're going to take out the meatballs. Now the rind is in there really for flavor purposes. If you try to bite into it, it is going to be somewhat chewy. So I don't really recommend doing that, but it is certainly there for flavor purposes. Oh, wish we had smell-o-vision. I'm going to come back and tilt the pan a little bit because I want to get some of that delicious broth. All right, let's wipe that off just a little bit. All right, there you have it. Some delicious pork and ricotta meatballs. Pork, ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, breadcrumbs, some nutmeg, and a little bit of egg in that, served with spinach and peas over egg noodles. I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.
Recipes from the heart of the home can be found on the Virginia Farm Bureau website at vafb.com/recipes, as well as on Chef Tammy Brawley's website at greenkitchenrichmond.com.
Virginia hams are famous the world over for their flavor. Salt-cured hams were first mass-produced in the Old Dominion in colonial times, with methods borrowed from Native Americans. Today, all manner of pork products are produced from animals raised in Virginia. The sale of hogs from the farm is valued at more than $96 million a year. Most hogs are raised in closed houses under contract to a processor to provide controlled environmental and health conditions. But some farmers still raise hogs on pasture, and some sell local pork products at farmers markets and direct to the consumer.
When they say this state fair has something for everyone, they're not kidding. Norm Hyde reports from the fair's exhibit for history buffs and fans of vintage machinery.
You can't miss the sound of the antique tractors and motor displays at the State Fair of Virginia. They're like a siren song for curious kids and old-timers alike, and the Heritage Village exhibit features dozens of working engines and other farm and rural equipment. There's even a 1/3 scale miniature hay press, complete with a model steam engine that runs on propane.
The steam tractor was actually made in 1977 by the John Tyler Community College. It was a school project, very well made, very well put together, and it is such a joy to be able to come to the state fair, not so much to work the equipment as to socialize and educate the general public as to how things worked back the turn of the century.
John Soderberg of Virginia Beach has been working with antique engines most of his life and volunteers every year at the State Fair of Virginia and Chip Oaks Plantation State Park. He's happy to demonstrate how much work it took to keep these old machines running and why mechanization changed American agriculture for the better. And he says children enjoy the old machines more than their parents.
And they're actually mesmerized by the wheels turning, the gears in motion, and they'll sit and stare, and the parents will have to grab them by the hand and let's go see something else. What's fun is to get a child that's 8 to 10 years old who has been watching, ask them if they'd like to help, and I bring them around and let them help me feed the wire through, tie the bale, and then ask them if they'd like to blow the steam whistle.
A dedicated corps of volunteers keeps the antique engines running and explain how they work to curious visitors. One of those volunteers was Robert Wickline, whose passion for farm equipment ran so deep he willed a vintage tractor to each of his grandchildren. Wickline died earlier this year, and granddaughter Layla Zach decided to share her inheritance with the fair.
He loved his family more than anything, even more than the tractors, so it just seemed fitting that each grandchild got a tractor.
When my grandmother told me there was many things I could do with it, I could donate it or I could keep it, I really thought hard about donating it, and I decided to donate it to the state fair because that's something we always did together.
Layla's 1953 Farmall tractor was front and center in the exhibit area this year, one of 6 similar models that Wickline restored over the past decade.
Some of them came in pieces, and every one was stripped completely down, repainted, 100% authentic, so it varied. Finding parts was always a challenge, but he got it done. I hope to always see the tractor because he'll always be here. And I hope that it will encourage people to continue with the restoration of them.
Tractors and engines aren't the only antiques on display in Heritage Village. Sally Lovell of Poquoson has been bringing her collection of old household and farm items to the fair for more than a decade. She says they bring back a lot of memories.
The old folks like to show the younger people, oh, this is what's mine when I was a little girl, or this is what my grandmother used. And then they have fun with the telephones because the kids don't know how to dial a rotary phone. That's a really big kick. So, and then the kids like to be able to touch. So most of our stuff that's out here is designed so the kids can touch and make the typewriter type and make the sewing things move. So they have.
What is this?
It's a pineapple core, eye core. So when you skin your pineapple and it's got the little brown spots, that's for taking the eyes out.
His mother's kitchen drawer. I took all the.
I didn't know what it was. I
never
had to do some research.
God. You sure?
Yeah, that's what they said. It's a pineapple eye cutter.
Found out what this was.
Lovell is a retired teacher and enjoys her hobby of showing visitors all of the old technology. From milkshake mixers to toasters to typewriters, much of what is on display is a mystery to youngsters, but not to their parents.
A lot of them will tell me about their grandparents, or if they grew up on a farm, they used most of the implements that are here. They'll tell me about, oh, I did this or I did that with my grandma. And I always say, hopefully it brings back good memories. And they say, oh yeah, the times were better, much better, and good memories. So we don't tell them that it's old stuff, we tell them it's vintage. So they don't feel so bad.
The 2021 State Fair of Virginia had about 215,000 visitors this year after being closed by the pandemic in 2020. Heritage Village is one of the most popular fair destinations every year, and volunteers and exhibitors alike were glad to welcome folks back to their glimpse into the past. At the State Fair of Virginia, I'm Norm Hyde reporting.
We're so glad you could join us this week to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer. From the kitchen to your home and garden to our beautiful wide open spaces, we are proud to say that this is real Virginia. For everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a great week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
They're out there on the front lines. The brave, the dedicated, the relentless. But there's another front line. The one that helps nourish all others while facing epic struggles of their own. So in this season of uncertainty, a few things remain certain. The rain will fall, the sun will shine, and together we'll continue to grow.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Smokey, catch.
Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.